Hello guys, I'm here in my 1994 F150 XLT with the 5.8 liter paired with the E4od automatic transmission. I want to go over some common problems you might experience out of these trucks. Number one, since we're in the cab, is the clock spring in the steering wheel. 1994 had a big problem with them. The clock springs will go out. They'll just go out. So you got to take the whole steering column apart just to get out, or just to get it out. You got to take the steering wheel off, got to take the airbag out. Then you got to take the ignition key out, because there's a wire that goes, ignition cylinder out. There's a wire that goes to the ignition cylinder itself. You'll have to put it back in. Cost about 80 bucks, 60 to 80 bucks from AutoZone. Another one is for 94. For 94, the engine coolant temp sensor, or at least the gauge for it, will go out. It's a common problem on 94s. Let's see. Let me think. There's quite a bit of problems, but these are just random, with age problems. 94, the seals for the fuel pumps on the tanks, there was a recall for them. It's not the only recall they had. There was a recall for hard starting they had. For some reason, 93, 94, there was a recall for the wiring harness. For the PCM, the trucks would hard start. I don't think my truck ever had that recall done, or if it did have that recall done, over time it'll start hard starting again. Another one is the E4od transmission. You might as well go ahead and buy yourself an F150 from the 90s with a ZF6 in it. Some kind of manual. The E4od is one of the worst transmissions I've ever experienced. It's not as bad as the 4L60E, but, the 46RE, the 4L60E, and the E4ods, if it's from the 90s and it's a big 3 transmission, it's most likely going to be crap. 94, the solenoid packs for the E4ods would start going out. That's a $130 replacement. Valve bodies are a replacement. I'll get to under the hood in a minute. Valve bodies go out. That's about $130 as well. Let's see. Apparently in 94 there was a problem with the alternator belt, or the drive belt. I've never heard a problem with that. Most likely it's related to the tensioner. It's a nice cam. Okay. Most likely related to the idler, or not the idler, but the tensioner setup. There's some problems out of that. They had a faulty design. Let's see. 94, well, in 9th gen F-150s for sure, one of the big problems is that will come out. I can literally pull that whole, I can pull it out with the wiring as well. I can pull it all out. That's a problem. In 9th gens, these, a lot of people, or a lot of trucks, you'll see that these are pushed in. The whole little switch is pushed in because at one point it just broke off the mount. And whenever you go to take this whole dash piece out, you'll most likely break the attaching point for this knob. Another problem with them, another problem with 94s was, let's see, or at least with 9th gens, you'll notice is when you're driving and When it gets dark, if you want to turn on your cluster, when you want to turn that on, it'll come on and it'll turn off. It won't turn off necessarily. It's kind of a bug. One of the wires gets stripped, and you got to pull it, or you got to kind of tap it sometimes. It'll shut off for a second, come back, or it'll flicker. The lights back there will. Another one was the ABS light and the red brake light on 94s was a big problem, and it's still to this day. It's because the wire that attaches to the light behind there gets stripped over time and starts touching other wires, so there's constantly power going to that light. That's a nice truck. Let's see. Let's see. I know 94s, especially with the 5.8s, for some reason the fuel pumps would get weaker than usual. 5.8 fuel pumps are always weaker than 5.0s. It's a pretty demanding motor. It uses quite a bit of gas just to prime the fuel pump whenever you go to start. You could sit there and watch the fuel gauge go down. I guess we'll go under the hood. Oh, another problem, and I know a lot of these trucks have it. At one point, you're going to be missing a handle. This will crack because design flaw. You'll be missing a handle at one point because it snapped right at the bolt. That's a service truck and it sounds loud as hell. Okay, let's go under the hood. Discuss some things. Let's see. Oh yeah. Strut tower mount. Always on the driver's side. Most of the time it's on the driver's side. It'll be noisy as hell. And it's mainly, yep, that's what it is right there. Shocks out. It's not the biggest thing in the world. Under the hood, that light, you can see how we held it up. That light will start to flicker every time you open it. As soon as it gets all the way open, it'll flicker real bad. So if you have epilepsy, that's a big problem. On 8th gens and on the 8th gens particularly, MAP sensors, they go out. EGRs go out on these trucks easily, especially because that EVR right there. It's an electronic vacuum regulator that regulates the diaphragm inside. Okay, the diaphragm inside the EGR. It takes vacuum off the manifold. Usually there will be dust inside that EVR, and it will just clog it up and kill it, basically. Another thing is, on the 460s from the 9th gens, the fuel pressure regulators were problems for the 460s, but we're talking mainly about windsors. You can tell I've bypassed my AC and my smog pump. If you go to delete your smog pump, you might as well go, if you want to fix it or something, you might as well go ahead and delete it, because by the time it's 5 years old at least, it most likely ain't, that crap ain't running. Hoses on windsors. This particular hose that goes straight down into the block, always a problem. They sag. So you ever watch a video, somebody's got them tied up. The stock spring, or the stock hoses in my truck were crap. I'll show you the ones that I'm talking about. Put mud on the truck. Those right there. Those are crap. Get the ones from a 5.0 with the springs in them. The ones that are smooth, way better. Throttle cables. Over time, the plastic, and you can tell, the plastic will break. You can see I've ghetto rigged it up. This hose is a cooling hose for the throttle body. It goes all the way and it recirculates into the radiator. I deleted that. It wasn't hooked up for some reason. I think radiator's been replaced at one point. I don't know. You can tell I deleted all the AC crap. All the hosing. MAP sensors are bad. Things out of this truck. Here's one. That right there. It's a spring tension. It's a tensioner spring. That will cause you problems. The bolt inside right there will break in half. You will have to take the alternator, the smog pump, that tensioner all out, and take the bracket that holds all that together out. Some things we've done to this truck would be that that gave us a problem. TFI is a problem. On 9th gens, the TFI is on the side firewall. On 8th gens, and you can tell it's got a plate for it. They're on the distributor, especially on 5.0s and 5.8s. Anyway, it sounds like it's going to rain soon, unless that was just... power steering line. There is a line right there. There is a Teflon O-ring that goes in there. Because that has to hold a lot of pressure. That will go out and you'll lose your power steering. At one point I'm going to take all that out and probably take that bracket out and just put a pulley there. I might even delete it. The gearbox. The steering gearbox down there. You can see those bolts right there on the frame. Right there. Okay, one of them's a little far out because we couldn't get... Anyway. Those bolts will snap in half. I know key cylinders are a problem with these old trucks. It's just because they wear out. You can sit there and spin them backwards, and you can start them with screwdrivers. That's another thing that goes out in these fans, because they're clutch fans. On a clutch fan, you should not be able to spin your fan backwards. Or at least that's what I've been told. I've got to get a new one. The bearings inside are gone. That's just something goes out. On these 9th gens on your master cylinder, these plugs right here for the ABS and for the brakes, they'll go out. It's just old. Oh yeah. Since we deleted the AC, we deleted the cooler inside there, the intercooler or the breather, whatever it's called. Deleted that as well. Let's see. A lot of gaskets cause problems sometimes. It's a reliable truck. You just got to know what you're getting yourself into when you do this. You can see we disconnected my EGR. It stopped working because of the EVR. So we're going to get a plate to block it off into the manifold. We're just going to get rid of it. At one point, we just got to have the plate. On an 8th gen, on an 80, let's say you have an 88 compared to a 94. Starting solenoid. 8th gens had starting solenoids that would become weak at one point. They'll just become weak. So you just replace the solenoid. 8th gens don't have as many wires going to it. If your heater is stuck on defroster, it's because this line right here, right there, is broken. Because that right there is what sets it. That's what changes it. There's a diaphragm in there, and anyway. I got rid of the lines. I got rid of pretty much everything. I'm gonna get rid of pretty much everything. I'm gonna get rid of these cooling hoses that go to the heater core. We're gonna get rid of them up to here, or maybe right here. We're gonna plug them or cranch these lines down, or I'll delete them completely all the way down to the water pump. We'll figure out what's best. Whenever you do a smog delete, or you just generally redo the hoses, plastic lines, I don't know why they did it. In the 90s, they did plastic lines for the vacuums, for the vacuum lines. Those lines will become brittle real quick. You'll have vacuum leaks. Get you 5 32nd inch hosing from AutoZone. 11 foot of it is all you really need. And you can see I've got fuel pressure regulator and my MAP sensor, and that's all I've got running in this truck. If you want to do a tune-up, well, that sounds like shit. If you want to do a tune-up, I watched some videos. A guy would take this line off of the brake booster, and he would take some seafoam and feed it into the intake manifold. Another thing is, on these 94s, on the fuel, on the fuel line on the bottom of the truck goes into the filter. The line is steel, so you have to have a tool to get it out. You have to have that specialty tool. Another thing for 94s is right here. These will go bad on 94s. I don't know why. It could probably be a thing for all of them, but they'll go bad at one point. Go get you one from AutoZone. Ain't that expensive. These back windows on super cabs from the 90s, they will leak from the top. Sometimes that's a problem. Let's see. There's one other thing. Tailgates. The latches the latches will be hard to put on, and when you do put them on, a lot of times your tailgate will be out of place by like a very small fraction of a inch. The transmission we're back on the transmission. The transmission, I don't know if I've already said it, but apparently the E4ods will go out of alignment. I don't know how that happens, but they'll go out of alignment and they'll flare. Adjust your bands every 30,000 miles, apparently, is what you need to do. Oh, excuse me. Apparently, you need to adjust your bands. Fuel filters, not fuel filters, but trans filters. Sometimes, or on these E4ods, if you get it, that's the first thing you want to replace is that filter. Otherwise, you won't be able to go down a block. Any questions, just ask in the comment section. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.